Hello, I'm Ann Gritch, and I'm delighted to welcome you to this segment of the oral history of the Diocese of San Jose. And with me today is Father Joe Kim, who currently serves as Vocation Director for the Diocese. So we are delighted that he's here. So welcome, Father
Thank you,
Joe.
Ann. It's great to be here.
It's good to have you. So tell us a little bit about your background, where you were born, school, that kind of thing.
Sure. I was born in upstate New York, a little place called Poughkeepsie. My dad worked for IBM, and so we moved when I was 4 years old to the IBM here. IBM, if you didn't know, means I've been moved.
I heard it was I bring manuals.
Oh, that too. I have three older sisters. We grew up here in San Jose, went to St. Francis Cabrini School, kindergarten to 8th grade. I was part of the Korean Catholic community. We used to be out at Queen of Apostles Parish. Father Jim Mifsud spoke better Korean than I did. He was gracious, and so I grew up both in Queen of Apostles with the Korean Catholic community as well as St. Francis Cabrini Catholic community there. And we moved to Saratoga when I was in high school. So I went to Saratoga, graduated there, and moved up to the engineering school at the University of California in Berkeley. Go Bears. And then was discerning all the way through. Worked as an engineer in Sunnyvale for a little bit over a year, and then took some time off to discern priesthood, and then ended up in St. Pat's.
So you were raised in the Diocese of San Jose.
Starting at 4 years old.
Yeah, so we were already our own diocese,
That's
which
right.
means you're a young man.
That's right. Yeah, I'm a little older than the diocese. 1 year older than the diocese. It's easy to understand
how old the diocese, right?
Or how old I am.
Or how old you are, right? How fun. So tell me a little bit about your years at St. Patrick's.
It was great. I actually discerned priesthood at a discernment program in Ohio at Franciscan University. So I had some formation of prayer and kind of discipline before coming in. That helped out a lot. But St. Patrick's, great to come home into this diocese. I was actually considering religious life. Being a missionary, I wanted to go far places, and so I discerned with the Missionary of Charities in Tijuana, and for a month. And
is that where you learned your Spanish?
My Spanish I learned because my older sisters used to talk about me in Spanish in home, in the house, and that gave me motivation to learn pretty fast what they were talking about me.
That's wonderful.
So I in high school I did a program called Amigos de las Americas. It's a nonprofit organization that sends high school aged kids down to Latin America. So I was down there for 8 weeks in Ecuador, in the high Andes Mountains. So actually that was one of the places where my vocation kind of came about. But my Spanish, I grew up with Spanish classes as well as kind of being immersed in those environments.
That's how I learned mine. So,
yeah. And at St. Pat's, my classmates, a lot of them were Mexican. So I know several of my classmates are from Michoacan and Monterrey, and I was ordained with Father Hector Basañez, who's originally from Mexico as well. So, and those guys taught me good things about Spanish and things I can't repeat.
Exactly. You're acculturated.
Yeah, and actually that was a beautiful part of St. Patrick's, the experience there. A lot of guys coming in from various walks of life. Hector was a widower and had kids of his own.
And if you think even grandchildren by the time he was ordained.
That's right. Yeah. So I was ordained also with Father Tito Cartagenas, who was had a Jesuit formation and then was in the airline industry and then came on board. So lots of various backgrounds.
Which has probably served you well.
Yeah. I don't know if I would ever be friends with these guys in a normal, if I were to choose, but the Lord brought all these holy men to this diocese, and it's great to be
That's wonderful.
great to be here.
So you were ordained in 2004.
No,
right?
I entered 2005. So I was actually ordained in 2010.
Oh, 2010.
Yes.
Okay. All right. But were you the first Korean priest for our diocese?
For the diocese.
For the Diocese of San
I
Jose.
think there were
right.
some who went off to be religious.
Okay. But for us.
Yeah. And I mentioned I was thinking about missionary life. My stomach, first of all, can't handle that. So everywhere I
Good to
go,
know.
I always get sick. Even in like New York, I get sick. You know, I mean, my stomach has been built for California. So that
That would be an impediment.
Pretty, easy discernment. But really, actually, I think God put a heart of a shepherd in recognizing that a lot of my classmates and friends growing up, they were leaving the church, they leaving the faith completely. I mean, they left being Christian, let alone Catholic. And so I just realized, visiting all these religious communities and missionary communities, that this is mission territory oftentimes, and a lot of these young people who are leaving the church, maybe they haven't really encountered Christ, even though they've gone through a lot of our catechism and Catholic education, but to become a disciple of Jesus. And I think that was what drew me back here, is the sense of I wanted to preach the gospel, to let them encounter Christ the same as I have, and I just felt drawn back.
Tell me, how has the Korean, I mean, I'm sure the Korean community was incredibly proud.
Sure.
Did they have expectations of you, or did you have expectations just in terms of your background?
Well, I think the expectations, they didn't really know that I was discerning until I resigned from my job.
Sure.
And then I was very seriously considering religious life, which would have meant they would have never seen me.
Right.
And then, so it was rather a surprise that I came back for them, and they were obviously elated. My mother, she was supportive, but not initially.
Not thrilled.
Yeah, there's a lot of, it's a difficult life. She understood the priesthood is a difficult life, so I think it took her a while to get accustomed to that. But now she's very supportive, obviously, of it. I think the Korean Catholic community has always had priests from the various dioceses of South Korea.
Right.
So as the first diocesan priest for our community, I think there's a certain expectation that I'd always be around, even though our bishop has not said that we're going to be the pastor of that church. We're still getting the priests from Korea, but I think there's the sense that I'll always be around, and I always get phone calls about young kids, young adults who are kind of wayward, and the parents are calling me up, and and I have no problem doing that. And I have a good relationship with a Korean pastor. He can't speak English, I can't speak Korean, so it works out great.
We have to work a little harder.
Well, it is, and we have Father Steve Kim, Father Gabriel Lee now from that community. I think the community is used to having Korean priests from Korea, as well as Korean American priests who are born here and who can understand the difference between generations, who are immigrant generations and the children of immigrant generations.
Born here.
Yeah.
Well, that's marvelous. So you were ordained in 2010. What was your first assignment?
My first assignment was Holy Spirit Parish in San Jose.
All right. So Father Brendan McGuire was the pastor then.
Yes.
Okay. And you were there for how long?
I was there for 4 years.
All right. How was parish life?
Kicked me out.
And you were there at a kind of a fun time, wasn't?
Yeah, we Holy Spirit was starting another parish, Our Lady of Refuge. helped to found that with the help of 4 other parishes. And so I thought initially going to Holy Spirit didn't quite make sense given my background in the Spanish language and culture.
Sure.
And so little did I know that the Lord wanted Holy Spirit to be involved in the creation of the brand new parish of Our Lady of Refuge, which is in the very dense neighborhood of a Hispanic community as well as Vietnamese community. So I was able to help there. We also then started a relationship with a group called Amigos for Christ, which is in Nicaragua. So I was also then able to lead mission trips with our parishioners down to Nicaragua.
I've talked to some of the parishioners who just said those were wonderful opportunities.
Yeah, it was quite an experience for families, generations, to be able to see their children or their parents in a different light. And when you're working with the poor, somehow everything's kind of equalized.
Isn't it true?
Yeah.
Isn't it true?
Yeah, so I had a really great time at Holy Spirit, really appreciative of Father Brendan and his leadership there. And towards the end of my time there, we started this Drexel initiative that Father Brendan was helping Catholic schools to move into 21st century. And so I was kind of helping out with the transition there at Holy Spirit into their school. That's a diocesan school, and so working with the Drexel initiative.
Yeah, we're looking forward to interviewing Father Brendan just to have him talk about the whole Drexel.
You may need a lot of time.
A lot of time, right? He's a bit enthusiastic, rightfully so. Yeah. Who were your mentors in the early days?
Well,
I mean, obviously Father Brendan was one.
Father Mark Catalana, I mean, if we go all the way back, Father Mark Catalana was the Vocations director at the time, and he was very influential in bringing me into the diocese while I was discerning religious life. I think my own peers were very helpful. My own class, as well as a class behind me, Father Andrew C., Father Steve Kim. The year before me, Father Ernesto Orsi, Father Roberto Gomez, Father Andrew V., Father Justin, all these guys. It's kind of like the Marines, you know. I mean, when you go in, you may have a high ideal of what you're going in for, but when you're in the trenches, I mean, maybe there are still those high ideals, but it's your brothers who are going to kind of keep you accountable. It's your brothers who are going to pick you up. It's your brothers who are going to really encourage you. So I would say I only had 3 older sisters, as I mentioned, but now having all these brothers.
Kind of nice.
It really is. It really is. As for priests, Father Stephen Brown was my official mentor right out of the seminary. And so I would meet him every month and have great conversations.
He's a good priest.
He is. He is. He's a lot. There's a lot. He's wiser than he looks. No, I mean, I'll tell him that to his face.
Exactly. So. He will love that it's on tape for history.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Father Stephen Brown, Father Brendan McGuire, we would, chat after in downtimes and have good meals and smoke a couple cigars and talk about, the whole church and
solve the world's problems.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right. But he obviously is a very motivated and just a very energetic, enthusiastic about the faith and the church. So that was, he and I got along on that score. Coming out of seminary, oftentimes we're very enthusiastic and maybe a little too enthusiastic, but sometimes in the first couple of years, if that is not seen in some outlet, that gets killed, the zeal for the faith or the zeal for the church, which is a really good thing. And so I think seeing Brendan work so hard, that's why he has so much gray hair, and to really see that in action for someone was 17 years my senior in ordination, it was really motivational and it really inspired me, as well as the staff at Holy Spirit, very capable people, and showed me the ropes and that first couple of years immersed into parish life, you really got to kind of feel your way through who's doing what and what my role is. So they really helped me out a lot.
That's good to hear. San Jose, as you know, has just a wonderful history of lay ministry, and it's just good to hear. And yes, and particularly Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit was known. The South County parishes had just wonderful lay ecclesial ministers, so it's just nice to hear you affirm that.
Yeah, Father Murray was a big part in that and bringing the community together, and that's really the culture of Holy Spirit Parish is really from, he kind of set the tone, and it still really is present.
It's wonderful.
And the people, I mean, as much as I love the staff and the pastor there, but the people really are, I can't say enough of the parishioners of Holy Spirit as well. I mean, I'm sure this is true of any other parish, but your first assignment is kind of like your first love, right? And so I'll always remember, the families and the kids at the school, but just really good, wholesome people.
It's wonderful.
That really formed me in my first 4 years of priesthood.
Sure. And I think it works the other way around too. I think parishes remember when they've had a newly ordained priest.
Yeah.
There's just something energizing, I think, about that. There's an enthusiasm, and probably a felt sense that they're kind of responsible for some of the formation. They probably can't articulate it, but there is that we need to help. It's so hooray.
Yeah, I was surprised at how emotional I got when leaving Holy Spirit. After 4 years, making connections, and people really consider me as part of their family.
Sure. Do you still connect?
Oh, yeah.
See, that's the great thing about our diocese is we're so compact.
That's right.
We can connect with folk. That's great. So was it from there that you went into the diocesan offices?
Yes.
Now, you had a double job for a while there, right? Evangelization.
That's right.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah.
Kind of ties in with your desire to be a missionary.
That's right. It actually does.
And it's good on your tummy.
That's right. My tummy actually grew. So even before I was called up to work in the diocesan offices, we were working with a group of 6 parishes looking at the question, where are the young people? And this was a priest council initiative looking at why didn't we see young people either in the pews or active in the church's life?
Right.
And so we studied a book called Almost Christian, and that was a study on the National Study on Youth and Religion, which was a longitudinal study for about 10 years on American youth, and many of them calling themselves Christian but not really believing in a personal God. And the research showed that they believed in a moralistic therapeutic deism, a God that says, be nice, I'll make you feel good, and I'm only here in emergencies.
Gotcha.
Right?
Yeah,
and so
no relationship at all.
That's right. And kind of thinking, well, why we don't preach that, or we don't teach that. So where are they picking this up? And the study found, and our own study found, that it's the parents as well, right? And the parents and how the kids are picking up what the parents, even though they may not explicitly say that, but it's their interpretation of what the parents, as well as of what the teachers and preachers are preaching, the kids' interpretation. So we looked at that, and so we started kind of a little group of 6 parishes that were looking at what to do about that, and talking about what worked and what's going well, what we can do better, and looking at staffs and different initiatives like the mission trips and such. And that kind of grew, the conversation grew, and the bishop was looking at what to do with that to make it more available to all 54 parishes. And then at that time, Father John Poncini was moving on from being the Vocations director to Los Altos. And so Bishop McGraw asked me to be the Vocations director, and starting and continuing this evangelization effort by starting this office of evangelization and putting me in charge initially, and then also to sending me away to study about evangelization to help with evangelization and vocations.
That was a busy time.
Yeah, I think this white hair right here is from
Yeah.
But it was exciting. I mean, I think in the country, we were one of the first dioceses to start an office of evangelization, to connect it with vocations. I mean, it made sense to have, I mean, if you're preaching the gospel, you will have young people who will radically follow the Lord in service of the church. And so it made sense, but it quickly got a little unwieldy as the evangelization effort really grew.
Oh, yeah.
And
Success means
that's right.
Sometimes it gets out of hand.
And I think the time was right, and parishes were wanting more. They wanted more help. They wanted more support and resources, and it was great. So we did a little restructuring on that, and we had a lot of priests that the bishop tapped in, as well as lay people in the whole group, as well as a little restructuring within the chancery itself, and that let me be free to work really with vocations and seminarians.
What are some of the challenges as a vocation director?
Well, it's numbers.
Probably, yeah.
Everyone always says, and we know it's not about the numbers. And then the next question they ask is,
How many?
how many do we have? I agree, it's not about the numbers, but I mean, the numbers do reflect on the overall health of the church and how we are evangelizing and really growing.
Oh, sure. You know, as director, when I was directing the Institute for Leadership and Ministry, we looked at numbers.
Yeah.
You know, so it's the same. I understand that. Yeah. I mean, you don't focus entirely on that, but
Right.
sure.
I mean, we're kind of in a bit of a crisis today, 2017. We're 14 years out from celebrating our 50th anniversary. We are going to have 45 priests retire from today through that day, January 31st of 2031. So, I mean, we're in a bit of a crisis. Just to cover retirement, we need to ordain 45 new priests in 14 years. So that's a big challenge. I mean, that's about 3 a year that we need. And so we currently only have 7 seminarians, whereas we probably need about 25. I think the challenge, I honestly believe there are vocations here. I mean, I came out of here.
Sure.
And so many others have come out of this county of Santa Clara.
Local church, exactly.
Which is so diverse in many, many ways. Backgrounds, I'm from an engineering background, education, economics, ethnicity, culture, which should actually be our strong point, right? And so can we have a vocation strategy that is from our strongest points? You know, is there a vocation strategy for Vietnamese Americans, for Filipino Americans, for Mexican Americans, for Korean Americans? Is there a vocation strategy for youth to accompany them along the way?
Sure.
We have great high schools who are doing very well, excellent elementary schools and youth programs in our parishes. So how do we not change those, but invite, call, pray for vocations in the midst of everything that we're doing, which is very excellent. And so I think the challenge is really, how do you have a vocation angle to everything that we're already doing? So it's not a lot of pressure. It's about the promotion of it, which includes praying. I think that's a very important thing. We're not praying enough for vocations, but also teaching about vocations. A lot of young people today, they're not even considering marriage, really. I mean, so it's not even about priesthood or marriage.
Life,
It's not. It's about a vocation, a calling. They're not realizing there's a plan for their life, and that God has a plan for their life, and that they ought to pursue it because that's their greatest happiness, is to pursue the plan. Right, exactly.
What do you look for in an applicant?
I look for a disciple.
Okay.
initially. I mean, I look for, and not a perfect one. I
I
mean,
would hope not.
we're.
I mean, our church is good.
We're
but,
still, we're still on our way. Everyone's
Right.
still on their way, but we're still seeking. We're desiring a greater relationship with the Lord. I'm looking for someone who is seeking the Lord in his life, and someone who wants more, who has that kind of passion for faith, and has transformation happened already in their life, and who wants that to happen for others, and someone who's able to connect with people, someone who's real, someone who's a human, who has the same joys and the same grief and anxieties and as other people, and who can speak to that. And so someone who can connect with people, who's relatable, and someone who can lead obviously by example, but by words and their own skills.
Yeah, exactly. What are the joys of your position?
The joy of being a vocations director is really getting to know these young men very, very personally.
Yeah, very personally, intimately.
And obviously that, I'm not a perfect vocations director, so I make mistakes.
I haven't met the perfect, now that I think of it.
But I mean, it's a human thing, so I'm sure they can tell you all about my foibles too, so that'll be in the next segment.
Hardly.
But it really is getting to know them and understanding priesthood as a spiritual father, to kind of providing foundation, giving opportunities to grow. Within a parish, you're that too, but I think now kind of focusing in on this group of young people, both who've already discerned who are active in seminary life, and also those young men who are discerning, and to walk with them, it's a great joy. It's tough. It's like being a parent. It's tough. It's being a parent, like a brother, and like a teacher, all at once.
All at once. Yeah, and brother is like an older brother.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, though some of them are actually older than me.
But
so.
I don't mean age-wise. I know that.
That's
yes,
right.
I know. Although I have to say, if they're Asian, they don't look old.
That's right. I'm actually 75.
Yeah, right. Oh, I tease the Asian community. I say, you either look very young or very old. I've never seen a middle-aged Asian.
That's right. Well, once the white hair comes
in, right, then you move right into elderly. So our seminarians now are at Our Lady of the Lake in Mundelein. Can you tell us how that came about?
Yeah. Mundelein is a great seminary. It's the largest seminary in the country. It was actually built to be the Catholic University of America. The cardinal at that point of Chicago lost in the votes, so went to D.C.
Right.
So, I mean, it is a top-rate place. It's in Chicago, unfortunately. So
It's a distance.
It is. We have sent our seminarians from the inception of this diocese to St. Patrick's Seminary. Obviously, our foundation as a diocese is rooted in that decision. We were founded from the Archdiocese of San Francisco. St. Patrick's Seminary over the last several years has gone through a significant amount of transition and change, which wasn't the ideal environment for young men to be discerning and being formed as a priest. So ultimately, Bishop McGraw thought that environment was not the best place for our men, and it's really not our seminary per se. We've always had a tradition of sending our men there, but our seminary was toppled in the '89 earthquake. So we don't actually have a major seminary. So we were open to looking at all the major seminaries that were suited for what we were looking for in our location as Silicon Valley, very diverse environment and cultures here in the county of Santa Clara. And so there was a team of priests and lay people and leaders in the diocese who interviewed what our needs were from various people and around the diocese. And then looking at what the needs were, we went out to all the seminaries in the West Coast, major seminaries in Mount Angel and St. John's and Camarillo. We were also looking at seminaries in Texas and Washington, D.C., as well as Mundelein, since Mundelein is the largest seminary in the country. And after visiting all those seminaries, we decided that Mundelein was the best fit for our men.
And they seem to be doing well. As you know,
That's right.
we were fortunate enough to interview them, and I liked what I saw and what I heard.
They've really, it was a tough transition for many of them because they were coming in off of their pastoral year. They had to leave their classmates, totally new environment, new formation structure, new classes, new wardrobe. They had to get a bunch of coats. Thank the Knights of Columbus who rose to the occasion. Many of those knights came from Chicago, so they knew exactly what they were going into. So the knights bought them all these thick jackets. So you got to hand it to, Edgar, Francis, Eric. They were in their final year. For them to kind of go into the final year over there, they really got to hand it to them. John and Victor coming in off their pastoral year, Manuel, Robin. So all these guys, troopers, to really take the hit, and they really were open to moving, and they were really actually impressed by the hospitality.
Yes.
Robin was saying that he was surprised that the vice rector carried his bags to his room.
They couldn't get over that. I know, they've told everyone.
That's pretty amazing. Yeah. Father Brian Walter, great mentor and example.
Well, I was thinking too that this experience for them will be formative just in terms of when they are ordained, please God, and are talking with families who have to, move, or kids going off to school. I mean, they will, have known experientially what this was about.
Or being moved themselves.
Yeah.
So,
but that's true. And
sometimes we don't like the place we get assigned to, but
we don't want to leave the place we've been.
Well, that's true. Yeah. That's true. So I've been really impressed by these 7 seminarians of ours, and
I'm very proud of them.
Yeah.
I really am. Yeah.
They've shown
a lot
of
of maturity. One of them, is an ILM graduate.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So you have vested interest.
I have vested interest, right? Exactly. And of course, you were on faculty for us at the ILM in Spanish on the Spanish track.
Yeah.
Yes, I was very proud of the fact that we had a Korean seminarian who taught in the Spanish track.
I always tell them, if you don't give me your sons, your grandsons, your nephews, your ex-boyfriends to become seminarians and priests, you're going to have Korean priests to preach and to teach in Spanish to you. So let's go, people.
Let's go. Let's get on board here, folks. Oh, how fun. What are your hopes, Father, for the future of the diocese? We mentioned that in 14 years we'll be 50 years. Yeah.
I think maybe Rome thinks we're a bunch of orchards, but
we're not.
Most people who are in the know realize how important the County Santa Clara and Silicon Valley is. And obviously for reasons of, on an international impact, we've got major companies here, but also the diversity here and the people who are from many different kinds of histories. I think my hope is that all of us become missionary disciples, as Pope Francis is encouraging us to do, following the call for the new evangelization from John Paul and Benedict. And I think if we do that well here, we will set the bar for the rest of the country and the rest of the world. But we have a lot of poor people here too. I mean, it's not like everything's going well. Obviously, housing is crazy, but we also have a large homeless population.
And are undocumented.
That's right, a lot of immigrants. And how do we, as a church, address that and welcome them? And
those are some of the challenges we face.
so we have, and if we can do that, then that sets the bar for not just other churches, but for our country, which at this point seems to be very divided. And can we be a witness and an instrument of justice, of peace, of unity, of good news when they see us, not what we say, but how we live? And I have great hope that we can do that. I think the Lord has brought in some amazing talent. Those who have been here, the clergy and the lay people from 1981, they had that spirit of, this is something new. Let's do something awesome. Let's have a church that's a beautiful church for God and for the poor. And I think that spirit is there. We're maybe going through some growing stages. But I think if we get back to our own inception of who we are as a Diocese of San Jose, that same fire and passion for the gospel and for the poor, and now with technology, I think it's an equation that is going to result in a beautiful church.
That is probably a wonderful way for us to end our conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.